NFR Extra follows all your favorite cowboys, interviews legends of rodeo, and talks to the best of country music. Follow Nevada Caldwell, Ryland Bentley, and Steve Godert every week as they delve deep into the stories behind the road to gold in Vegas at the National Finals Rodeo. It's revealing, comedic, and sometimes emotional. Find it on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. NFR Extra. All dirt, all rodeo, all year.
The next morning I woke up and my calf on my left leg was swelled up dang near like a basketball. It was big. I called my dad. I'm like, hey, we probably ought to go to the hospital. I said, there's something wrong with my leg. He goes, we'll come home tomorrow and we'll work you all day. You can work the soreness out of it and we'll go in on Monday. So he had me dig the cattle guards out with the shovel. Like I worked all day, and every 5-10 minutes I'd be short of breath and just had to sit down. We go in there and that doctor looks at it and he says, I don't know a lot, but he said, I'm going to send you for an ultrasound. This looks like a blood clot.
NFR Extra, episode 92. Everyone in the rodeo industry saw Joe Frost's success coming as he climbed the bull riding ladder with each 8-second ride. What we didn't see coming was an early retirement at the age of 28 for the Randlet, Utah native son. But you won't hear Joe complain about it.
How many guys, you look at Tiger Woods that broke his foot, right?
Yeah.
And he's not going to golf for days, and it's golfing. And you got guys that break a foot and they figure out a way to get a boot on and still ride. But that's also why by the time they're 40, they're done. They can't walk. They can't get out of bed.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by the rodeo athlete, man. I don't know. It blows my mind what these guys are capable of doing. But yeah, I think the ability to take care of yourself, man, and prolong your career, get paid, right? Enjoy our conversation with Joe Frost. Stay tuned to the end for Last Call with Steve and his good buddy, NFR announcer Andy Seiler. And up next, Bradland's Bull with the rodeo news of the week.
This is Bradland's Bull, the rodeo news of the week.
One of the most significant casino projects ever on the Las Vegas Strip is setting a date to finally open after more than 7 years of planning and building. Resorts World Las Vegas will open June 24th and begin taking reservations for more than 3,500 rooms at its 3 Hilton-branded hotels. Along with their opening dates, Resorts World Las Vegas confirmed its headliner entertainment that features Celine Dion, Carrie Underwood, Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, Kisto, and Zedd. Road to the NFR World Standing Leaders have been consistent throughout the month of April, except for the barrel racing with Shelly Morgan from Estrus, Texas, moving into the top spot. Here are the rest of the leaders. Bareback riding, Tilden Hooper. Steer wrestling, Jacob Talley. Team roping, header, Eric Rogers, and heeler, Peyton Bray. Saddle bronc rider, Ryder Wright. Tie down, Shane Hanchy. Bull riding, Colton Fritzland. And in the all-around is Stetson Wright. There's only one NFR, there's only one Vegas.
In Las Vegas, December can only mean one thing: the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo. The NFR is the culmination for the top contestants in the world seeking to share the $10 million purse and the coveted gold buckle. For fans, Las Vegas transforms into the greatest Western party in the world with the NFR Experience, which features Cowboy Christmas, the Junior World Finals, non-stop entertainment, custom viewing parties, and so much more. Follow all the action at nfrexperience.com. Great moments, great champions, great memories. There's only one NFR, there is only one Vegas.
Hi, I'm Fred Whitfield, 8-time world champion, and this is NFR Extra.
While many bull riders feed off adrenaline rush schedules and lifestyles, steadiness seems to suit Joe Frost. Joe knows how to win. The 5-time NFR qualifier is the first and only cowboy in history to earn the Triple Crown of national championship titles. He entered the professional rodeo world as a promising young bull rider with a national junior high school title, a national high school rodeo championship, and college rodeos top bull riding honor. He hails from a long line of pro rodeo athletes named Frost, and his mantle is littered with buckles and awards, including the coveted Bill Linderman Memorial Award, which is presented yearly to the leading cowboy with the minimum earnings of $1,000 in 3 events. Joe Frost, welcome to NFR Extra, sir. How are you doing right now?
No, doing pretty good. It's a little windy here in Utah, but I'm staying out of it in the cab of the skid steer.
Where are you at up there in Utah? Where exactly are you located?
Northeastern Utah, about 30 miles southwest of Vernal.
Nice. Did you ever cross paths with Mr. Casey Field or anybody like that?
Not as much Casey. He lives a little further south. Ren Richard, they only live 20, 30 miles from here. And then Casey's brother, Shad. And in fact, when I was in high school growing up, Louis Field was driving truck right by the house, and he'd stop and help me get on bucking horses there when I was learning how to ride barebacks.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool.
A few years back, you experienced a lot of success early on in your career with the National High School Rodeo Bull Riding Championship. Utah is very serious in high school rodeo in general. How do you think that affected your approach to pro rodeo and your discipline?
I look back to high school, junior high school rodeo. We have 30 rodeos in Utah, and I never did amateur rodeo. I went to a few, but you can count them on one hand. You know, I high school rodeoed, and then I went to the PRCA right from there, and we took it dead serious. You know, I didn't go to football games, and I didn't play other sports. I wrestled during the winter. You know, we take a 3-month break from rodeo anyway due to the winter. We practiced. We rope calves, steer wrestled, rode bulls and bucking horses at 5-6 days a week, and then went to the rodeo on the weekend. You know, that was all I did and all I wanted to do. And then, you know, so it was a easy transition, I think, from how serious high school rodeo is in Utah to jumping right into the PRCA. In fact, my senior year, I went to Moab and Harriman's pro rodeos in between the last high school rodeo and our state finals, and filled my permit.
You know, when you're in college or high school, and there's some people that are serious about it or kind of semi-serious about it, but then you get to the pro level. How is the difference when you're around individuals that, you know, you're all gunning for money, and it's, you know, this is your career, things like that, and the difference of college and high school? I mean, does that make sense, kind of what I'm trying to get at?
Oh, yeah. Oh, exactly. You know, when you're in high school, you have a select few, and you can tell them, you know, that are doing it with the intention of getting to the next level and the next level after that have the mindset of doing that for a living. And then, you know, and then you have the kids that may go on an amateur rodeo a little on the weekends. Then there's a whole bunch that are just doing it, and they're not going to go past high school rodeo. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's basically doing something to stay out of trouble. It's just something that they're involved in. I remember at times in high school, there were things that were frustrating to me because I looked at it as, this is a stepping stone. You know, this should be as much like pro rodeo as we can make it. On the same note, you have people that's not what it is to them. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It just, for me, it was it was literally just a stepping stone to pro rodeo. And then when you get to pro rodeo, it's that you basically got 2 groups, and it's the people that are trying to make the NFR and run a world title. And those people are doing it for a living. And then you have people that are basically your circuit guys that are rodeoing on the weekend. They've got a job during the week. They go just do a couple rodeos on the weekends. But even those people are serious because it's costing them money if they don't take it serious. But there is a whole nother level of the people that are doing it for a living and trying to make the NFR, and that a lot of people, you know, outside don't understand the level of commitment that it takes.
Yeah, I would imagine that once you do get to that realm, it feels pretty good because this is what you've been working at, and you know, you're all of a sudden with all these like-minded individuals. Did they treat you a little different knowing that you were, you know, a young champion coming in, or was it just like, no, it doesn't matter, man. You're here and you got to earn every bit?
Pretty much. You know, I think I had done well enough in high school and college and stuff that a lot of them guys kind of knew who I was, and it made them more friendly to me. You know, just they expected something out of me, which, you know, may put a little weight on your shoulders. It more than anything makes you made me feel welcomed. Them guys knew who I was enough to say hi or ask if I needed help or willing to let me jump in and go to a rodeo with them or something.
Well, just on namesake alone, I mean, you guys have got quite the heritage on that deal from, having a cousin and the crew that he ran with that elevated to the top of the ranks, your grandfather, your uncle, you entering into the program. And like you said, going from the high school ranks directly into PRCA essentially, and your little brother kind of hot on your heels there. But what is like those guys that knew you by namesake and the expectation that they'd have on you. So what did you put on yourself for maintaining the legacy of what the Frost name had with rodeo?
As far as, I get asked that question a lot, about maintaining the legacy of the Frost name and everything. But I don't, for me, like I knew no different. Growing up, like there's everyone's seen the movie about how much Uncle Clyde expected out of Lane all the time. And there was a little bit of a relationship thing there that Hollywood skewed a little bit. But the fact of expecting your very best effort and expecting you to take your ability and make the most of it, that's something that I grew up. I don't think I put a lot of high expectations on myself, but I do that with everything. And I did that, from the time I was little. Nothing I ever do or did, I didn't want to be the very best that I could be at it. And so I guess I don't know that I ever felt any expectations, just from being who I was. It was more just a who I am. I always wanted to do the best at what I could, whether it was school or whether I was wrestling or even farm and ranch and being a father, husband. Everything I try to do, I always have tried to do the very best. I don't do anything just kind of, anything that I get into, I just, I have high expectations for myself because I work at things. I work hard at it. That was probably what made me have higher expectations for myself than anything, was the amount of time and effort that I had put into riding bulls and rodeoing in general. Thousands ahead, tens of thousands ahead of practice bulls and calves and steers that I'd been on before I ever even bought my PRCA card. I had put a lot of time into it. And I think that's where the expectations for me to do well came from more than anything.
You're listening to NFR Extra with our guest, Joe Frost. Let's take a break. NFR Extra follows cowboys, talks to legends and country stars, and finds the stories that make up the season that leads to the annual showdown in December. Follow me, Nevada Caldwell, Brylan Bentley, and Steve Goder as we delve deep into the stories in and behind the road to gold. Listen to NFR Extra on Rural Radio, channel 147 on Sirius XM every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, with a re-air Tuesday in the same time slot. NFR Extra, all dirt, all rodeo, all year.
Hi, this is George Taylor, CEO of the PRCA, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
Joe Frost is here on NFR Extra. Let's go back to your cousin, the people he rolled with, and the people that you looked up to. I think I was reading that it's kind of funny you hear the word VHS tape, but you were watching, old school. We've talked about that with Brylan and what the 20th century used to look like with, rewinding and fast forwarding and hitting play. And did you have access to the Ty Murrays, the Tough Hedemans? Did you have access to those guys? Did you ever pick their brain to add more to your hard work?
I talked about watching the 1985 classic bull rides of the NFR when I was a kid. And those were, being related to Lane, watched a lot of videos of him and the guys in that era, not necessarily the guys that were riding in the late 90s that when I was growing up. Not that there weren't good bull riders then, but I think because of Lane and stuff, I tended to focus more on those guys. But I was really lucky, I had access to some of the very best there was. Donnie Gay, Denny Flynn, Joe Beaver, Robert Etbauer, and Craig Latham, and not all just bull riders, there's something to be said that you can learn. I learned a lot from Robert and Craig, and they were bronc riders, and Joe Beaver, Joe Beaver helped me more with my bull riding career than a lot of people know, and more on the mental side of things. He'd find me somewhere and talk to me, and he'd just have a one-line sentence or something that just would just help you change your mindset and get you through the rest of the season and get you where you wanted to be. Then whenever I later on I went to the PBR, I got to meet Ty Murray and Cody Lambert, got to visit with them a little bit more. But I would say, of those guys, Denny Flynn, I talk to him all the time. He helped me a lot throughout my career. And Donnie Gay too. Them guys were always almost, it's like they just could tell what you needed to hear, and I think that comes from being there.
What about your little brother, man?
Josh is, gosh dang, he's been doing good. He's struggled through his career and with injuries mostly, and those injuries were a direct correlation to getting bucked off. There's nobody that's ever tried as hard on a regular basis. I mean, Josh, he was always small for his age, and throughout high school and stuff, he wanted to ride bulls, and my dad held him back because he was small, but he, made him a deal that if you rode this certain practice bull twice or whatever, then he'd enter him in the high school rodeos, and he'd just hold on till his head hit the ground every time. Just because he just wanted to do it so bad and wanted to do well, but he didn't really develop a sound riding technique. The mechanics of his riding weren't solid, and so it got him in trouble a lot, and he got hurt bad a few times. And over the last 2 years, he's worked extremely hard. Put in double time to get to riding correctly. Boy, it's paying off now. Last year he got hurt at Fort Worth, and then come back, and I think the last 45 days of the season he won more money than anybody. He went from 99th in the standings to 18th, and then has started out the new year the same way, just riding, and he's riding correctly now. And it's, he's put a lot of time into the mental side. He's studied and worked really hard, and it's paying off big time for him. I couldn't be prouder of him.
You and Josh, growing up, you guys were all around athletes, though. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you competed in all events, which is very rare. I feel like today you kind of have like a handful of 5 guys that actually compete in multiple events. How did that partake? Was that like a family thing where you all just knew to do it, or how did that happen? Yeah,
my granddad was a saddle bronc and bareback rider, and I think if he was still alive, we'd probably ride both buck and horse events. But we both tried riding bareback horses. I done fairly well. I won a high school state title and made the college national finals. But then I retired. It just wasn't as important to me. But we grew up. We rode calves and steer wrestled as much or more than we rode bulls growing up. And we team roped a little here and there. But we put a lot of emphasis on bull riding, calf roping, and steer wrestling. And both of us, I'm pretty proud to say we both have won the Linderman Award. And that's a pretty, a lot of people don't know what that is, but in my mind, it's the true all around title, because you've got to win $1,000 in 3 separate events, and you got to do it at opposite ends of the arena. One event, some on one side and 2 on the other, however, which way you want to do it. And on all through college, we competed in those events and team roped. My dad competed in all the event, everything but saddle bronc riding. And so I don't know, I didn't really even start just focusing on the bull riding until like 2016 or 17. I was still competing in the timed events quite a bit, or I guess I could say participating. I wasn't putting enough time into them to make it worth my time, but I do really enjoy the timed events. And Josh still ropes calves a lot. When he's home, he's roping calves every day, and he would like to make the NFR in the calf roping someday.
That's impressive. So when you just started focusing on just the bull riding, was that the push to the PBR side, or what was the window that you saw to take that opportunity on?
For me, the deal with the PBR started 2018. I got married in August of 2017. And at that point in time, I had 150 head of cows, and I'm a homebody. I like being home. I always have, all the time I was rodeo, and I done better if I'd come home for 2 or 3 days as opposed, in between rodeos. Having a wife at home, having some responsibilities, and my dad, and would take care of it when I'm gone. But things that I enjoyed doing 2018 was hard being gone as much as I was. Just knowing that with the PBR, there's an opportunity to make quite a bit of money and be home for 3, 4, 5 days a week. And so for me, that was probably a big push to it, was the fact that I could make as much or more money and be home more.
That's appealing. That's nice.
Hell yeah. But when you say homebody, I mean, you're not just home, man. I mean, like, that's the difference with the cowboy universe. I can tell Steve's been working today because just looking at him. But what does homebody consist of when you're at home?
Oh, well, I guess it ain't not a couch potato homebody. I get up in the morning, go take care of, what, right now we're calving. So I get up and go check cows that are calving and tag calves, and then go load the trailer full of hay and haul it out and feed them. And then we're getting wheel lines and pivots going, irrigating. I'm doing some remodeling here. I'm building a little arena in our backyard. And I've also started training dogs. So I just go all day long here at home. And I enjoy that. I've always been being on the road. A lot of the time drove me nuts. I'd wake up at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and you're the only one up. and it's like, there's ain't nothing to do. I have so much fun being home working that I don't feel like I need a vacation. It's vacation for me to just wake up and work all day.
What got you into the dog training?
A big part of the dog, we run cows on a lease up in 6 miles from here and just south of the town of Randolette. But there's a lot of trees and stuff, and Josh and I had Heck up there gathering cows out of the trees at times, and one time he's like, man, you really ought to get us some good dogs. And I had a buddy that had some Kelpies, and I traded him. My wife raises cockapoos, and so I traded him a Kelpie for a cockapoo. And in hindsight, like, the Kelpie, he was just okay, but he was a good first dog. He didn't have really enough power to move cattle, but he was useful. It's really addicting. And I started buying border collie puppies. Before long, I had 12, 13 dogs. And then I started went to a couple clinics, learned how to train them better, and started taking outside dogs, training dogs for other people, and still doing that. I've got like 20 dogs over there right now. It's a lot of fun. It's something my whole life, I've always had a hobby. I was braiding bull ropes for a while, and then I was doing leather work, and I've even painted and drew for a while. I've always had little things, built spurs, but I never found anything that I actually was making money at. And these dogs, they're so much fun. I get to be outside, and it works right. It works with the cows. I can take a couple dogs, go move some cows. It ties in really good to that. And I was able to start making money at it pretty quickly after getting into it. I don't know. It's something I just fell in love with. And I've always liked dogs, but my whole life, I never had a dog that I could get to do anything I wanted it to do. Just learned so much now that it's like speaking another language to them. And I've got a couple that are literally, aside from my wife and daughter, they're like my best friend. It's like we know what each other's thinking.
This is NFR Extra, and our guest today, Joe Frost. We will return after the break.
Welcome to NFR 360, where the NFR experience comes to life. This portal transports you to an immersive visual experience, encapsulating the stories and history of the NFR experience. NFR 360 is a collection of newly produced and historical digital content filled with stories about current and legendary contestants, the inside scoop on all the elements of how you experience the National Finals Rodeo, and inside tips that will improve your experience during the NFR 365 days a year.
Hello, everyone. It is Jordan Tierney, Miss Rodeo America 2020 and 2021, joining you on NFR Extra.
Five-time NFR qualifier Joe Frost is here on NFR Extra. I want to talk about your NFR career. I'm just going to rattle off here. This is probably like a 6-year, 5-year run. You finished 2nd, 6th, 4th, 3rd in the world. I mean, and this is bull riding. You're grazing that fit top 5 for a good amount of years, which, I mean, man, the toll it takes on your body, your mind, everything, and not walking away with that gold buckle, right? Like that's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, I think of other sports, like teams making it all the way to the Super Bowl and just coming up short, right? And then you never see them again, right? It doesn't happen. What have you done in that run to sustain that kind of success? I know you're not getting the gold buckle, but man, making the NFR #1, that's a big check mark. But then to do what you did, that fifth area, the top 5 spots, what'd you do, man, to keep that going, Joe? I mean, that's not easy.
In 2013 was actually my rookie year, and I just missed making the NFR by, I don't know, $10,000 or give or take. But and then 2014, I made it, and I worked hard that year. Had to overcome some stuff to get mental stuff, and for me, it was more of, my whole life I dreamed of riding bulls at the NFR. And actually not being scared to let that dream come true, I think was a big part of it. Just get so close, and then just, it's almost like I just was holding myself back, but finally broke through the ice and made it. And, I think I made it 11th, and I don't know where I came in. I think one year I went in there sitting second, but every other year I was down the pack a ways. And then rode well enough at the finals. I was blessed, always had a good finals. But I worked hard. I'd come home the end of September, and I'd take most of October off. I'd just try to watch what I ate, maybe get on a couple practice bulls, and then go to the circuit finals the end of October. And then after that, I'd get serious, and I'd ride 1 or 2 bulls every single day for 30 days. In November, and worked out every day, was on a pretty strict diet. Just, I always tried to picture myself like Rocky going to fight the Russian, and that we didn't have snow most of the time. We did buck some bulls in the snow before I went down there, but I just trained as hard as I could to make sure that I was physically and mentally ready for the most 10 strenuous days. And everybody talks about, how sore you're going to be from riding bulls. And I think a guy would if he wasn't in riding shape. But the biggest strain is you go down there and you sign autographs for 5-6 hours a day. And then you load up and go to the rodeo, and then you're out till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at least, and wake up and do it all again. And that's 10 days in a row, and it's just nonstop, and everybody wants to talk to you. And you're not, it ain't just a vacation in Vegas where you get to go ride bulls. It's a business trip, and it's strenuous. But I made sure I was in as good a physical shape as I could be in. And I think that helped me mentally more than anything. Just being able to handle those 10 days, knowing how prepared that I was for it. And I always, that I think the last year I went maybe was the worst I ever had it physically. I got hung up and slung around in the second or third round. And then had a bull hit me in the chin and put a bad kink in my neck. I had to go get a massage every morning just so I could turn my head. But I think how bad would those things have been had I not been in top physical condition to go on and ride the next night and keep going. That's one thing I do know. When you're in shape, it's like your muscles are more elastic. They don't, you get hit or something or stepped on, you bounce back faster. You don't bruise as bad, it seemed like. And so I took as many precautions as I could to make sure that I was in as good a shape as I could be in. And I rode, I think a big part of what helped me to ride well at the NFR, even better than I did during the year most of the time, was the fact that I was getting on, and I didn't get on high level practice bulls. I got on bulls that I could ride blindfolded. They were not hard to ride, but I practiced riding perfect. My body was so used to being in perfect position that it was easy for it to find it when I got on bulls that really bucked. And I think that was, and that was something that Denny Flynn told me to do. and I done it every year before I went. And I credit that to a lot of my success at the finals.
Go back to your first NFR. Did you get hit? I could imagine this happens, but did you get hit with a lot of the lane frost questions like that? I mean, did it get a little crazy with that, or did they not? Did that something?
I mean, I don't think any more than what I ever had, because the people in the rodeo world knew me long before I went to my first NFR, and the people standing in the autograph line, the level of that never did change. You get it a lot. I said this on another podcast a while ago back, but I said it's not really something that bothers me that much. It's at the time the Tiger King movie had came out, or on Netflix, and I said it's not like they're wanting to know about your cousin, the Tiger King. It's Lane Frost, so it's not that bad,
That's awesome, man.
That's 7 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back.
No.
So with the retirement aspect of it, you've always maintained the ranching side. You've always had kind of a little hobby. You're still doing all of that. But now that you're venturing out into kind of the retirement side, what are you going to do to appease the competitive side of your personality?
I've been in our dog trials, cow dog trials, and it's pretty, it doesn't sound that exciting, but it's the competition, and they'll have 3 head of cows that they kick out in the arena, and you have to send your dog around them, and they'll have a spot, there's this place where you can stand, and you have to use your dog to move those cattle through different obstacles. And then it's timed, but you have to get your points at each obstacle before you move on to the next obstacle. So there's so many aspects to it, because it looked easy. I didn't think it would be hard, but you have to pay attention to your dog, the cows, the obstacle, and yourself in correlation to all that, because you can affect those cattle, you can affect your dog. There's so many things going on that you have to control all at once to be successful. And it's been a lot of fun. I've really, really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to doing more of it here in the near future. I've actually got qualified for the Mountain States National Finals in July. So it'll be my first time going to that. I'm pretty excited.
Have you ever heard of the Rodeo dog trials? Have you done any of those?
Yes, I have.
So when you're doing the regular dog trials, are you just standing, or are you via horseback on those? Like you said, in a spot. So
these ones are just on foot that I've been doing. And they're, it's basically all the dog doing the work. You don't get to help the dog very much.
So that would be probably the difference of that and the rodeers.
The rodeers, you're a horseback, and you and the dog work together the whole time.
Yeah.
Final break before we finish our conversation with Joe Frost.
Every December, the eyes of the rodeo world are on the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo, the world's richest and most prestigious rodeo. And now you can follow the NFR all year long at NFRexperience.com. You'll find information on Cowboy Christmas and the Junior World Finals, unique blogs and content, access to NFR Extra, and much more. With the Stay in the Loop Club, you'll also have a chance to win a trip for 2 to Las Vegas 2021 for the world's greatest rodeo. Don't get left in the dust. Stay in the loop, stay in the know, and win at NFRexperience.com.
This is Shane Miner, and you're joining me on NFR Extra.
NFR Extra with professional bull rider Joe Frost. We've had injuries, and wicked ones too, almost like Groundhog Day-ish, if you will. And then dealing with blood clots, which, mix all that together, man. That's some tricky stuff you got to jump in and out. Like, what can you share with us some of these injuries you've had that now led to the point of where, the blood clots are leading to something that unfortunately, man, has got to, get more into dogs and less into riding bulls.
Yeah. So the blood clot deal started when I was in high school. I got stepped on by a bull, and I was at a jackpot before a high school rodeo, and bull stepped on the inside of my thigh, and big, deep bruise, you know. And I rode my bull the next day, or I rode my bull in the short round that night. And then I high school rodeoed for 2 days, went home, went to wrestling practice all week. And boy, the back of my knee had gotten really tight that week. I remember it just like, I just couldn't stretch it enough, you know, and it just cramp up. Well, I went to a wrestling tournament that weekend, and boy, I was sick, you know, like I didn't do well. And I just felt like I was completely out of shape. You know, I'd be winded within the first 30 seconds. And I just remember my dad was just disgusted because I just performed so poorly. And, you know, in hindsight, he was probably just thinking I just wasn't even trying, which looking back, I'm sure that's what it looked like. But boy, I was sick. And I ended up getting beat out of the tournament. My dad just went home. He was one of the coaches, but he had stuff to take care of at home. And he left. Well, the next morning I woke up and my calf on my left leg was swelled up dang near like a basketball. It was big. And I called my dad. I'm like, hey, you know, we probably ought to go to the hospital. I said, there's something wrong with my leg. He goes, well, you come home tomorrow and we'll work you all day. You can work the soreness out of it and we'll go in on Monday. So he had me dig the cattle guards out with the shovel, you know, like I worked all day. And every 5-10 minutes, I'd be short of breath and just had to sit down. We go in there and that doctor looks at it and he says, I don't know a lot, but he said, I'm going to send you for an ultrasound. This looks like a blood clot. Go in there and sure enough, you know, it was clotted off. So they put me on blood thinners, which at that time was the coveted and basically rat poison. And I was on them and they thought, well, after 3 months, being as young as I was, it would clear out. Well, they checked me at 3 months and it hadn't. So I ended up going the full 6 months on them. At that point, it was cleared out and good to go. So that was 2008. And then again in 2016 at Houston, I had a bull step on me, same exact location on the other leg. And that was in the, what was that? That was might have been in the semifinals. And then I went down to Mercedes and got on there at the Extreme Bulls and then came back to Houston. And boy, that leg was so sore. And right where I had it in the back of my mind. I'm like, this is way too similar, you know? And I got on there and rode the rest of the bulls at Houston. And then I had a few days off before I went to Austin. And I drove up to Kylie's place, which my wife wasn't my wife then, but she was at college in Oklahoma, and I was just hanging out there for a few days. And I was like, it was way too similar to the one I'd had 8 years before that. And then I called my dad and I'm like, I think I'm going to turn out to Austin and just come home and get an ultrasound. I said, my legs are sore. I know I ain't going to ride very good. And if this is a blood clot, I want to catch it early. And so I went in, sure enough. Well, I ended up going after found out there was a blood clot in there. I went out and seen a specialist out in Salt Lake. And she basically said, oh, you've had 2 blood clots. You need to be on lifetime blood thinners. Anytime you have 2, we just put you on lifetime blood thinners. You know, your bull riding career's done. And I'm like, no, like this was just like, I just got stepped on just right. Like if that would have happened to anybody, it would have happened, you know, they would have clotted up just like I did, you know? And so anyway, I'm like, whatever. I take the blood thinners for the 3 months, get an ultrasound, get cleared to go back to riding. Well, and she told me, she's like, what happens is it gets worse. The next time you get them, you're not going to have to get a deep bruise that's going to, you know, tear that vein or be something. She's like, you're going to sit on an airplane too long, or you're just going to lack of physical activity for any period of time. Something's going to happen. And I'm like, you know, I just didn't, I'm like, no, it's just coincidental. But anyway, so this last time that I got him, I broke my leg in Houston at the PBR, and they went in, put a rod in it, fixed it. I took 2.5 months off to let that bone heal, come back to the PBR finals. In the second round, I got bucked off and I was crawling away, and that bull stepped on my spur. So it twisted my ankle over, you know, just 90 degrees. but it spiral fractured that same. It was the same bone, but it spiraled that bone all around the rod, which is kind of a crazy deal. And it hurt way, it was way more painful than when it was broke without a rod in it. When it was just flopping, it was not as bad as it was the second time.
Oh,
but after that second time, I sat, I couldn't, it was so sore. I couldn't even wiggle my toes. I was just like, sit there and don't move because it was so painful. But anyway, my wife and I was at a Farm Bureau convention, and this was about 10 days after I broke my leg, and I was on crutches and I had the walking boot, but I wasn't really even walking on it. But the back of my knee was getting tight, just like those other times that I had them clots. And I'm like, man, I think I got a blood clot in there. And we went in, got an ultrasound. Sure enough, it had clotted up from the middle of my thigh down to my ankle. And in hindsight, I probably should have been they'd have probably put me on blood thinners for a couple weeks, but where I never went to the hospital, we just was in the sports medicine room, and Tandy Freeman's like, well, bad news is your leg's broke, but the good news is it's already got the rod that we'd put in there in it. So just rest up till it heals. And so it never even crossed my mind. You go to the hospital and they want to know if you've had history of blood clots or history of heart problems or whatever. And so you always tell them. But, I basically sitting there with my sports medicine guys and we didn't even feel like I went to the doctor, I guess. So I just never even mentioned that and didn't cross Tandy's mind either, and he was pretty upset about it later when he realized that, we'd missed that. But anyway, so I'm thinking no problem. 3 months on blood thinners, the clots will be gone. I'll be back to riding and back on the road. Well, I go in at 3 months and clots are still there. And at this point, this starts crossing my mind like, okay, 4 years ago, I had a lady tell me that it was going to get worse. And I told her, whatever. So I'm like, okay, no big deal. 30 days, they'll be gone. They was going to check me every 30 days after 3 months. And I'd go in and they'd still be there. And they're like, probably better go another month. And I went, gosh, what did I go? I think I went 6 or 7 months before I called Dr. Pepper Murray in Bountiful, Utah, is a really good sports orthopedic surgeon guy and really understands rodeo and bull riding and just gets it. He's if you're a bull rider, that's who you want to go see, or any rodeo athlete for that matter. But I called him and told him what was going on. And I'm like, and he's got a team of specialists there in his office, and I said, I need to see somebody that can help me. And he's like, okay. He said, I'll text you this lady's number and I'm going to talk to her and let her do some research, and then you can come meet with her. And I went out to see this lady that I guess she deals with other sports that have, she has like soccer players and football players and basketball players and stuff that are on blood thinners that have clotting issues. But what they do is those guys they'll take blood thinners, say a football player, he'll take blood thinners all week and he just won't practice no contact. He'll practice catching the ball and running the ball and dodging or whatever they do in football. And then before the game for 2 days, he'll go off blood thinners. So they do an intermittent dosage deal. He'll go off of them. He'll stay active while he's off of them. And then he'll play in his game. And then when the game's over, he'll go back on the blood thinners. And then he'll just practice light for the week. Well, the problem with that for me, so you have to be on, because riding a plane or sitting in the car, that's a big time when you can clot up, like when you're sitting stagnant. So you got to be on the blood thinners while you travel. So say I had a 2-day PBR event, I would have to show up there. If it started on Saturday, I'd need to show up there by Wednesday night so I can go off the blood thinners for 48 hours. And then ride bulls for 2 days, go on the blood thinners, wait another 24 hours or whatever it is till you can fly again and fly home. But at that point, I need to fly to the next one. Anyways, it didn't sound like a very good option for me. And then that also, it basically cuts practicing out of the deal, because the problem with the blood thinners is you're at a high risk for internal injuries. You get, or brain bleed, those kind of things, and your body won't clot off. Clotting, we need clotting to stop the bleeding. Our body does it. It's a good thing. But then you also, if it does it too much, or if it's clots too easy, then you just sit too long and your blood can clot up. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But, so going off the blood thinners, then I'm at a risk for clotting. And I do believe they do get worse, because this last one I had, boy, my whole leg clotted up in 7 months, and they still hadn't cleared out. So it's kind of like, okay, now I'm on the blood thinners as a preventative measure to prevent any clots from forming.
I was just thinking about those blood clots, and this is actually talking to people like Casey Field, who actually had the brain bleed with his kick a few years ago. And I started to think of like how much you guys are. I mean, while it's unfortunate, even for how Dr. Tandy gets to see things, I mean, you're actually helping people out as we go forward with, information and how to stay ahead of things and allow cowboys to live a healthy life. Because I'm just guessing, man, some interviews we've had with some old school guys back in the 70s, 60s. I mean, you probably, I'm not being morbid here, but you'd probably go die, man, because you're like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just roll with it, and then you die on a plane, or you die just randomly and things. Like, it's just...
Yeah, that's just like my dad. Yeah, dig these cattle guards out, and then would go in, and he's like, oh, geez. I can't believe I made you do that, But, and it has. I mean, I've had people ask me, bull riding friends and stuff that have been stepped on, or so I'm like, just go in, go get an ultrasound, go get it checked out, because it dang sure could be.
That's the difference, though, now between like the more modern professional cowboy athletes that train and work out and work towards it versus, back in the 70s, if Copenhagen and Coors Original Banquet couldn't fix it, like you might as well just lay down anyways. Yeah.
Well, that's, and your body is your number one tool, and you got to take care of it.
So you've dealt with the blood clotting, you've dealt with the injuries of rodeo, but if you had one fear, greatest fear, weirdest fear, what would it be?
Oh, I mean, I'm pretty scared of snakes, but honestly, I mean, basically just anything. I got a wife and a little girl, and I just, I just don't want nothing to happen to them. Ain't nothing bad, I just want them to always be okay, I guess.
That's a typical answer, actually.
Well, it kind of is. That would be snakes. The snakes is.
A lot of cowboys apparently have a problem with snakes.
Yeah, I don't want nothing to do with them.
I would imagine you come across them up there in Utah, right?
Yeah, I come across them every once in a while, and we don't have a lot of rattlesnakes, but water snake, garden snake, it don't matter. Bull snake, they're all the same. They're all just as creepy. I don't.
Yeah.
I agree.
Man. Well, Joe, this was great having you on, man. And it's while we would have had you on the show at some point, I mean, we had to get you on and talk about this decision to pull out of bull riding, because man, you're perfect for the bull riding industry, rodeo industry. So it's unfortunate, but man, the good thing is you get to enjoy your family, and you get to be a homebody on the ranch.
Yep. Well, I really enjoyed my entire career and all the people that I met, and it was something a lot of people don't get to go and do, and I'm truly grateful for getting to do what I got to do for a long time, and I guess now I finally have to grow up.
That's not true at all. Yeah, negative.
No, it's all good, but man, we thank you for taking the time, coming on, hanging out with us, man. It was good to get to know you here. This is You're a good dude. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. I sure appreciate it.
All right, Desperados, last call.
I haven't been this excited for 21 since I myself was 20 because all of this just...
It is last call. The only problem is we're sober.
Exactly. Let's do this.
All right.
All right, friends, this is Steve Goddard. Joining me right now, my good buddy, Andy Seiler. What's shaking, my man?
It's nice to be around goal-oriented people. And when you're around people that continuously challenge you, you think about doing things at the highest level. Well, what happens when you reach that highest level? Are you ready for the interview that comes with it or the aftermath? So, for instance, if you were selected to be Mr. Universe, what would your message be after, you walk on stage, get your sash, and what do they give Mr. Universe? They don't give him flowers. So, I mean, like a jerky stick? What?
Are we thinking about like the Mr. Universe workout Mr. Universes?
I mean, what would... there's always like, world peace, or what would your message be?
I don't think that there's a Mr. that, though. Like, the only thing they celebrate with that is, like, the Miss. So you got to go for, like, the Miss World deal.
I'm not wearing a dress.
The bikini I can't pull off.
I don't want to envision that.
Yeah.
What's your message, for crying out loud?
Man, I'd say if you're not cheating, you're not trying would be kind of the direction I'm going.
So you wouldn't pass the urine test?
Hold no accountability to yourself. I would, if you ain't first, you're last. That's in the words.
That's a good one.
Great Ricky Bobby.
Well, listen, I love Will Ferrell. If we're talking Hollywood actors, this is a mantra that I try to live by, and it was my senior quote from high school, and it's still one of my favorites of all times. And it's a line from John Wayne: "Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyways."
Yeah, I like the one where he says, "I'm not going to hit you," and he punched the guy in the face.
Was that Rooster Cogburn?
Mm. Don't hit me, I ain't going to hit you. Please don't hit me. I ain't going to hit you. Don't hit me. The hell I ain't. That's good stuff.
Now, I think another good message, one that I've heard here recently that I've tried to kind of model my life after, and I truly believe in it, is you are what your kids say you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty powerful message, because at the end of the day, if you choose to have kids, it's also your job to raise the next generation to take care of the next generation. Yeah. So, that's a powerful message to me, is you are who your kids say you are.
Who do your kids say you are?
Most of the time, they call me Dad, so yeah. I think that's a positive thing that they keep welcoming me home.
That's good. Mine always say I ate the last piece of dessert. Which is true, too. So, in case they want to run for Mr. or Miss Universe, I got to keep them honest,
Yeah.
Hey, don't quit working out, and you better stop eating that.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, I don't have the dad bod, but I'm a father figure, so I've got the shape for that.
You're the figure of a father.
The figure of a father.
So that's good. I don't know that I could ever be in a competition like that, though.
Mm.
Like, I mean, I don't mind having to step into a spotlight, but being the center of attention, that's not.
Nobody's got time for that.
No, I'm not really into that full on.
Yeah.
A big thank you to Joe Frost for visiting us on NFR Extra.
Want to experience more of NFR? Then visit nfrexperience.com. And we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've heard on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a big 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe.
NFR Extra.
All dirt.
All rodeo.
All year.
Gotta make it out to Vegas, where the big boys roam, with the rovers and the racers and the bulls and the broncs, and the ladies in the skin-tight wranglers and the cowboy